Hello everybody, this is Dr. Cole. It's Saturday afternoon, April 23rd, and we are entering now, let's see, where are we in the course now? We are entering week 15 for the spring term of 2022. So I had to count those weeks up and be absolutely sure about that there for a second. Well, in any case, everybody, final grades are due 3 weeks from today, Saturday, May 14th. Let me say just a couple of things. You may withdraw if you need to drop. Not that I'm encouraging anybody to drop, but if you're in a position where you may need to drop, you may withdraw as late as this Thursday, the 28th, at the end of the business day. That would be 4 or 4:30 p.m., I believe. Double check me on that. If you feel you may need to withdraw, you can do it that late. Now, the course will be offered every term. It will be offered this summer, at least that's the plan, I understand, and it should be offered again in the fall. Also, everyone, those who may be considering doing term papers, remember not to forget about your term paper if you're planning on doing one. There's 3 weeks left in the term, so there's about 2.5 weeks to get it in so that it can be graded in time to turn grades in 3 weeks from today. So not quite 3 weeks left. If you would like to correspond with me about your choice of topic for the term paper, then you should have received a lengthy document about the term paper, okay, describing several suggested topics. So email me through the course website or at david.cole@opsu.edu, and I'd be happy to advise you about whatever term paper topic you may be interested in. We're moving into Unit 8 to finish up the term. We got some information out to you on a discussion and a quiz. The quiz will be next week on May 3rd, Tuesday, May 3rd, I believe. 3 things to look at for that quiz. We'll say more about that a week from now. Okay. The discussion will be Tuesday through Thursday this week. And we've asked you to look at an article about Senator Manchin, whom students may have heard of. Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia. As you read that article, and you may have heard a bit about Senator Manchin, it really turns out a good bit of what's going on in the Senate these days revolves around Senator Manchin. So take a look at what the article says about Manchin. Among other things, think about, is he the kind of Democrat that you could envision representing a state like Oklahoma? Okay, Democrats aren't doing well, especially well in Oklahoma recently. But why would Manchin be the kind of Democrat who might do well in Oklahoma? Well, read that article and you might get some idea of why. All right, so we ask you to discuss whether you approve or disapprove of Senator Manchin, among other things. And you can try to post twice on that between Tuesday and Thursday of next week. That would be the 26th through the 28th, I believe, and that would be our last discussion of the term, and we'll have more to say about the quiz next week. All right, now Unit 8, everybody, to finish up the course on United States Congress, the People's Representatives, a lengthy unit. Let me say a few words about what we try to cover in Unit 8. We want everybody to know, first of all, who their own members of Congress are, their senators, and especially their members of the House of Representatives. It's especially important to know who your House member is for reasons that we try to explain through the course of Unit 8. So everyone needs to know who represents them in Congress. And we try to take care of that at the very beginning of the class notes. We say a good deal about congressional elections and what it takes to get elected, especially to the House of Representatives. And we look at the House districts from the state of Oklahoma one by one. We discuss members' relations with their constituents. How members try to maintain good relations and open lines of communication with their constituents. And we draw on the contributions of the late political scientist Richard Fenno here. Okay. All right, moving on, later on in the class notes, we discuss the process by which a bill becomes law, the leadership positions in the United States Congress, okay, and the committee and subcommittee system. Those are among the things we discuss in the class notes for Unit 8. everybody, let me say just a few words before we go today. The three pieces we've asked you to look at for the quiz next week on Tuesday the 3rd discuss the situation that has arisen in Congress over the past decade or two. For instance, we lay out for you in the class notes the committee and subcommittee system and the process by which a bill generally becomes law. Now, the committee and subcommittee system is still there, and it still does some important work, largely on what we would call routine, low-profile, non-controversial legislation, but we have to offer that caveat. As you look at the material you've been asked to read for the quiz, one of them from the Pew Research Center discusses polarization in Congress, the fact that there's very little overlap between the views of Republicans and Democrats in Congress anymore. That's different from the way it would have been when I was your age, when we would have had far more liberal Republicans and conservative Democrats in Congress than we do today. In the meantime, both of the parties have become more ideological. The Republicans have tried to run off their liberals. The Democrats have tried to run off their conservatives. So they're more ideological parties than they used to be. And this means they have trouble coming to agreement about what to do on important issues the country may be facing. Yet another article mentions that it's become difficult for Congress to pass laws these days. In the absence of Congress being able to pass legislation, the president of the executive branch agencies may take action on their own. Very often, these days, the Supreme Court or other levels of the federal courts will declare that kind of thing unconstitutional, claiming that it's overstepped the authority of the federal government or the executive branch. That recently happened within the past few days about the Center for Disease Control's mask mandate. The masks had to be worn on airplanes and other commercial transportation. Okay? So the article describes a situation in which Congress is asked to pass legislation, it doesn't. The executive branch tries to take action. The courts may feel obligated to block that. That puts the ball back in the court of Congress, which may still find it difficult to pass legislation. Not a good situation according to the author of that article. Although many people would just as soon see Congress not pass legislation, and so they're not all that unhappy about this ongoing situation. The final article mentions earmarks. Now, your class notes mention that about a decade ago, Congress did away with earmarks. They're bringing them back now. An earmark means an item of spending in the federal budget that a member of Congress gets inserted in the budget to benefit that member's own constituency, whether it be an entire state for a senator or a district for a member of the House of Representatives. That kind of thing often falls under the category of what we call in the class notes pork barrel spending. Spending done simply for political reasons. But it's believed that very often that smooths the way toward the passage of legislation. You offer a member an earmarked item of spending, and that may be enough to cajole the member into going along with a broader piece of legislation. So they're coming back, although they've been renamed and some restrictions are being placed on how earmarked items of spending can be placed in the budget. Right, so that's illustrative of a ongoing problem with Congress that the institutions run into over the past decade or two, when the differences between Republicans and Democrats in Congress have become so great that they find it difficult to come to an agreement and pass legislation. All right, so that's what you'll be looking at for Unit 8. We hope you'll take part in the discussion about Senate Dimension that we'll be running in a few days, coming up this week, beginning on the 26th, Tuesday. We'll say a bit more about your quiz material next week. We've got 2 more of these messages to go out, on or about April 30th and May 7th. And then after that, Saturday, May 14th, grades will be due. So the weekend of the 7th will probably be the last of these messages I'll get out to you. So there'll be 2 more than likely, after this one. So study hard. I hope you will take part in that discussion. Be thinking about your term paper if you'd like to do one. Remember, if somehow you need to withdraw, you have until the end of the business day, Thursday, the 28th. And we'll see you once again a week from now, more or less, give or take a day or two at this time.